The Aleppo Codex is the earliest known Hebrew manuscript comprising the full text of the Hebrew Bible. It is also the most authoritative, accurate, and sacred source document, both for the biblical text and for its vocalization, cantillation and masora. The Codex was copied by the scribe Shlomo ben Bai over 1,000 years ago. The text was then verified, vocalized, and provided with a masora by Aaron ben Asher, the last and most prominent member of the ben Asher dynasty, which shaped the Hebrew text of the Bible. It was probably the manuscript used by Maimonides when he set down the exact rules for writing scrolls of the Torah. In Aleppo, Syria, where the Codex was safeguarded for 6 centuries, it was believed to possess magical properties. It was said that women who looked upon it would become pregnant, that those who held the keys to its safe were blessed, that anyone who stole or sold the Codex was cursed, and that a terrible plague would wipe out the Jewish community if it were removed from their synagogue. At the tops of some of the pages, the Aleppo elders inscribed a warning to would-be thieves. Sacred to Yahweh, not to be sold or defiled. And elsewhere, cursed be he who steals it, and cursed be he who sells it. Among some parties, those fears persist even today. According to tradition, early in the 6th century, a group of sages led by the Ben Asher family in Tiberias, on the Sea of Galilee, undertook the task of creating a formal and final text. The use of codex technology, a method that made it possible to record information on both sides of a page, in book form, as a cheaper alternative to scrolls, had already evolved in Rome. Around AD 930, the sages in Tiberias assembled all 24 holy books and completed the writing of the Codex, the first definitive Tanakh, or Hebrew Bible. From Tiberias, the Codex was taken to Jerusalem. But Crusaders laid waste to the city in 1099, slaughtering its inhabitants and taking the Codex. The prosperous Jewish community of Fustat, near Cairo, paid a huge ransom for it. Later, in the 12th century, it served Maimonides, who referred to it as the most accurate holy text, as a reference for his major work, the Mishneh Torah. In the 14th century, the great-great-great-grandson of Maimonides migrated to Aleppo, bringing the Codex with him. There it was kept, for the next 600 years, in a safe within a small crypt hewn in the rock beneath Aleppo's great synagogue. The story of what happened next, how the Codex came to Israel and where the missing pages might have gone, is a murky and often contradictory one. In his book, The Aleppo Codex, A True Story of Obsession, Faith and the Pursuit of an Ancient Bible, published in May by Algonquin Books, the Canadian-Israeli journalist Mati Friedman presents a compelling and thoroughly researched account of the story. According to Friedman, Jewish leaders were intent on discovering and laying claim to their heritage in the region before the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. They took an intense interest in archaeology, embarking on quests to bring significant items of Judaica to Palestine. The Aleppo Codex was one of their top priorities, but numerous attempts to retrieve it were thwarted, which for many Jews hailing from Aleppo was further proof of the myths surrounding the book. At the head of these ill-fated efforts was Yitzhak ben Zvi, a prominent politician and a scholar of some renown, with a special interest in Jewish communities in Arab lands. In 1935, ben Zvi traveled to Aleppo, where the elders of the Jewish community allowed him only a glimpse of the case in which the Codex was kept. When he tried to convince them that the volume belonged in Jerusalem, they rejected his entreaties as the manipulations of an outsider intent on taking what was theirs to protect. 8 years later, in the midst of World War II, ben Zvi and other scholars tried again to win over the Aleppo community, fearing that the Codex, contained as it was in an Arab state during wartime, was in danger. In 1943, they dispatched a Hebrew University lecturer named Yitzhak Shamash, who was a native of Aleppo, to try to extricate the Codex. Shamash endangered his life by crossing the border into Syria, but once there, he too was rebuffed by the Aleppo leaders. Some of the younger members of the community, however, sharing ben Zvi's fear that the Codex was in danger, offered to help Shamash steal it from the elders. Ben Zvi's fears about the Codex proved correct. On November 30, 1947, The morning after the UN General Assembly voted in favor of the establishment of a Jewish state, a mob stormed the Jewish quarter of Aleppo, attacking the Jews and demolishing their businesses and setting fire to the synagogues. News that the Codex had been destroyed spread quickly across the globe. Because the elders in Aleppo forbade photographing the manuscript, the invaluable information that it contained was thought to have been lost forever. In Jerusalem, Yitzhak Shamash grieved inconsolably at having let his fear of the curse prevent him from recovering it. A few days after the riots began, a small group of community leaders learned that the reports of the destruction of the Codex were premature. There are at least 10 accounts of how it was saved. But the true heroes appear to be the synagogue sexton, Asher Baghdadi, and his son, who returned to the ashes of the synagogue and gathered the scattered pages. The Syrian government took an interest in the Codex after an American antiquities merchant offered $20 million for it. And so the leaders of the Aleppo synagogue went to great lengths to persuade Syrian intelligence that the book had been burned. For 10 years, even after word got out that the Codex had not been destroyed, they kept it hidden in secret locations and refused to contemplate moving it from Aleppo. Yitzhak Ben Zvi became Israel's second president in 1952. Shortly after, he obtained a rabbinical ruling from the chief rabbi of Israel effectively annulling all curses connected to the Codex and intensifying pressure on the Aleppo Jews to send it to Jerusalem. By this time, many Aleppo Jews had immigrated to New York, and some had become very wealthy. Ben Zvi asked them to help sway the rabbis who remained in Syria, and he appealed to the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee to cut the flow of funds if the Codex was not transferred to Israel. In 1957, two Aleppo rabbis, fearing their community was approaching its demise, decided to take advantage of a chance to smuggle the Codex to Aleppo Jews now living in Israel. Murad Fayum, an Aleppo Jewish merchant who had been expelled from Syria, was chosen for the mission. Just before I left, Fayum, who died in 1982, would later relate, "Rabbi Moshe Tawil said to me, 'I want to tell you something, but I fear for your well-being, because this thing is a danger to your life, and whoever is caught doing it will be executed by hanging.'" Fayum, who would take every opportunity later to trumpet his own courage, recounted that he told the rabbi, "With the help of God, I will take it out. Don't worry about my life. Because if the creator of the universe has decreed that the book be taken out by me, it will be a great miracle that the creator of the universe is performing for my sake." A man in charge of looking after the Codex arrived at Fayum's residence carrying a sack that contained the precious cargo. According to a report based on an investigation conducted later, Fayum's wife was aware of the importance of the contents of the sack and of the risks involved. And without opening it, she wrapped it up in sheets of cheesecloth. The family earned its living making cheese and blankets and hid it in a washing machine. According to the official story told by the Ben Zvi Institute, the head rabbis of Aleppo employed Fayum to deliver the Codex to President Ben Zvi, and through him to the Institute. Thanks for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed watching this video, which covers almost 1,000 years of history of the Leningrad Codex from 1009 to 2023.